In a world that moves at a relentless pace, where every moment seems to demand our attention, it's easy to fall into the trap of filling our lives with noise. The constant hum of notifications, the chatter of endless news cycles, the pressure to be always on, always available, always consuming and producing. Yet, in the midst of all this busyness, there is a deeper truth that waits in the quiet. A story that, if truly heard, has the power to change our priorities forever. Once, there was a young woman named Alara, living in a city that never slept. Her mornings began with the shrill alarm of her phone, immediately followed by a scroll through emails, messages, and social feeds. The world seemed to be knocking at her door before she even left her bed. She prided herself on her ability to multitask: breakfast while replying to work texts, commuting while listening to podcasts, eating lunch with one hand and typing with the other. Every spare moment was filled, if not with work, then with entertainment, social plans, or the gentle buzz of background music. Alara believed she was making the most of her life. She was in constant motion, never giving herself a moment to stop. But beneath the surface, she felt an ache, a subtle, persistent emptiness that no amount of activity could satisfy. She brushed it aside, attributing it to stress or lack of sleep. After all, wasn't this what it meant to be ambitious? To be alive in the 21st century? One evening, after a particularly long day, Alara found herself on the subway, her headphones piping in a motivational podcast as she scrolled through her phone. The train came to an abrupt stop, lights flickering, and the voice in her ears was replaced by silence. The power was out, and the usual hum of activity fell away. For the first time in a long time, she was left alone with her thoughts. At first, she felt restless. Her fingers twitched for her phone, her mind searched for something to fill the void. But as the silence lingered, she noticed things she had forgotten to notice. The rhythmic breathing of the passengers around her, the distant echo of footsteps in the tunnel, her own heartbeat steady in her chest. The world hadn't ended. It had simply quieted. In that stillness, a memory rose to the surface, one she hadn't visited in years. It was of her childhood, summer afternoons spent lying in the grass, watching clouds drift by. Back then, she had no schedule, no urgent messages, no pressure to fill every moment. The only sound was the whisper of the wind and the occasional song of a bird. She remembered feeling content, present, whole. The subway lights flickered back on, and the train lurched forward. But something inside Alara had shifted. She realized how much of her life had been spent running from silence, equating emptiness with lack, and busyness with meaning. She wondered what she might discover if she dared to let go of the noise. That night, Alara made a small decision. She set her phone aside, turned off the television, and sat in her living room, alone with her thoughts. It was uncomfortable at first. The urge to reach for distraction was strong. But as she sat, she began to feel a sense of peace that she hadn't known in years. She noticed the gentle hush of evening settling in, the way the shadows danced on the wall, the quiet hum of her own breath. Days turned into weeks, and Alara began to carve out more moments of quiet in her daily life. She took slow walks without music, allowing the world to unfold around her. She ate meals without distraction, savoring each bite. She began to journal, uncovering thoughts and feelings that had been buried beneath the constant stimulation. In the process, she discovered a profound truth. When we fill our lives with noise, we drown out the voice of our own soul. We become strangers to ourselves, chasing after things that do not satisfy, mistaking activity for purpose. But in the quiet, we remember who we are. We rediscover our deepest priorities, not the ones imposed by society, but the ones whispered by our own hearts. Alara realized that much of what she had once considered urgent was, in fact, unimportant. The messages that demanded immediate response, the endless scroll of updates, the pressure to be constantly productive, these things had crowded out what truly mattered. She began to ask herself new questions. What brings me alive? What gives me peace? What do I want to remember at the end of my days? As she listened, she found that her priorities slowly shifted. She invested more time in relationships that nurtured her, rather than those that drained her. She pursued work that resonated with her values, even if it meant saying no to opportunities that looked impressive on paper. She cherished moments of solitude, seeing them not as emptiness, but as space for growth and renewal. The world around her did not slow down. The city's pulse continued unabated, and the demands of modern life remained. But Alara had learned to create an inner sanctuary, a place of stillness she could return to. no matter what chaos swirled outside. In this quiet, she found clarity. She discovered that, by turning down the noise, she could hear the subtle guidance of intuition, the gentle promptings of joy, the quiet courage to live authentically. This story is not just Alara's. It is the story of anyone who has ever felt lost in the clamor of daily life. Anyone who has ever wondered if there might be more to living than simply moving faster. It is an invitation to pause, to listen, to remember that silence is not an absence but a presence, a space where the most important truths reveal themselves. In the end, the noise will always be there, ready to flood back in at the slightest invitation. But we have a choice: to fill every moment, or to leave room for the sacred, the mysterious, the essential. We can choose to let go of the addiction to busyness, to measure our worth not by how much we do, but by the depth of our being. What if, just for today, you put down your phone, turned off the television, and sat quietly with yourself? What might you discover in the hush that follows? Perhaps you will remember a dream long forgotten, or feel the stirrings of gratitude for the simple gifts of breath and being. Perhaps you will realize that happiness was never hidden in the noise, but waiting for you in the silence all along. Let this story be a gentle reminder. Life is not a race to be run, but a mystery to be savored. The most precious moments are often the quietest ones, the ones we overlook in our rush to do more, be more, have more. When we stop filling our lives with noise, we make space for wonder, for connection, for a deeper kind of fulfillment that no amount of activity can provide. So, as you move through your day, ask yourself, what am I filling my life with? What am I running from? And what might I find if I dared to embrace the quiet, to listen not to the clamor of the world, but to the gentle wisdom within? In the end, it is not the noise that defines us, but the silence we are willing to embrace. And in that silence, we may just find the truest version of ourselves, waiting patiently to be heard.